Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so what if I told you there's a hidden superpower responsible for almost every major breakthrough in human history? Seriously, it's the exact same power that let Leonardo da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa, helped Charles Darwin figure out evolution, and honestly, it's what helped you learn to walk, talk, and understand emotions when you were a kid. But here's the tragic part. As we get older, this power just gets shoved into the dusty basement of our minds. Well, today, we're going to drag it back out. We are unlocking the hidden superpower of pure observation, and it's absolutely going to change the way you see the world. Literally.
Let's do a quick test to prove just how much our brains actually miss. Ready? You are piloting a plane with 20 people. An engine catches fire. 6 people jump with parachutes. 2 parachutes fly away. 14 people and 4 parachutes remain. What is the pilot's age? Now be honest, are you doing the math right now? Trying to calculate the parachutes? Well, if you didn't get the answer instantly, you kind of missed the very first line. I said you are piloting a plane. The pilot's age is your age. This is a perfect example of how our brains completely skip over the most obvious details right in front of our faces.
So let's get into Section 1, the hidden superpower, unlocking the genius within.
You see, observation is the foundational skill that builds legends. It's how Isaac Newton saw gravity in a falling apple, right? It's how Elon Musk visualizes a whole civilization on Mars. But when we stop actively observing as adults, our performance just totally tanks. We end up overthinking, stressed out, and stuck in our careers. And hey, this isn't just about famous billionaires or historical figures. Look at a super practical, modern example. Safin Hassan. He became India's youngest IPS officer by cracking the insanely rigorous UPSC exam at just 22 years old, on his very first try. How did he do it? Well, while everyone else was burying their heads in textbooks for years, Safin spent 4 years of college consciously observing. He paid attention to the interviews, the real-world experiences, and even the flaws of successful officers. He'd hang out at NGOs in his free time just to observe the exact work he wanted to do. He literally observed his way to massive success.
Moving on to Section 2, the brain's data limit, why we miss the obvious.
So you might be wondering, if observation is so amazing, why don't we just do it naturally all the time? Well, it boils down to a physical hardware limit in our brains. Get this. Every single second, your brain is getting slammed by an estimated 11 million pieces of data from all your senses combined. Sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. It is this massive, overwhelming waterfall of information just crashing into you in real time. But here's the crazy catch. 40. Out of those 11 million pieces of data, your conscious brain can only process about 40 of them in real time. That is barely 0.003% of the information around you. Our brain storage capacity might be huge, but the actual doorway to get the information in, it's tiny. No wonder we completely miss the pilot's age in that riddle, right? Which brings us to Section 3, organizing your brain attic, structuring your mind's storage. Okay, so how on earth do we choose which 40 pieces of data actually make it through that tiny door? If you want to be a genius observer, you have to consciously pick what gets into your processing center. You've probably seen those interactive visual tests online, like that famous jump rope game. You're told to count how many times the girls jump the rope. You're hyper-focused, you count perfectly, you get 38 jumps. But did you happen to notice the giant person in a chicken suit strolling across the screen? Or did you catch that the background wall completely changed color halfway through? Most of us totally miss these glaringly obvious things. And this happens because of a scientific quirk called selective attention. Basically, it's when you focus on one particular thing in your environment while completely blocking out competing irrelevant details. Because I asked you to count the jumps, your brain zoomed in on that one task and literally deleted everything else, even a giant chicken, just to stay under that 40 data point limit. This perfectly illustrates an idea made famous by the creator of Sherlock Holmes, the brain attic. Think of your mind like an empty room, like an attic. An ordinary person just tosses all sorts of random, useless junk up there. But a master observer, they consciously choose to fill it only with furniture or information that actually serves their goals. If your brain attic is set up to look for clues, you're going to spot them. But if it's strictly set up to count jump ropes, well, you're going to miss the chicken every single time. So once you find the right furniture, how do you actually keep it? Because let's face it, our short-term memory is notoriously terrible. It usually only holds about 7 items. The ultimate hack for this is the memory palace technique.
It's this ancient Greek and Roman method where you store information by visualizing these really bizarre, memorable stories happening in a physical place you know really well, like your house. Say you need to remember a grocery list. You don't just repeat the words over and over. You picture people jumping on giant pizzas in your living room or a rainstorm of eggs falling in your hallway. Your brain is a tangled web of neurons, and it is wired to remember weird, interconnected stories way better than a boring bulleted list. All right, section 4, escaping the thought cloud, clearing the mental traffic.
Now, even if you know what to look for and how to store it, there's still a massive villain standing in your way, and that is your own inner voice. Think about a simple finger counting test. If I asked you to count how many fingers I was holding up, but at the exact same time I played an audio track of me telling you that waking up at 5 a.m. is terrible and waking up at 10 a.m. is amazing, what do you think happens? Your internal thoughts get so loud, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you completely ignore the totally illogical audio playing right in your ears. Your own thoughts literally blocked you from observing reality.
This is actually rooted in something called the McGurk effect. It's a psychological illusion where conflicting visual and audio info causes your brain to just fundamentally misinterpret what it's sensing. Whenever your cognitive space is jammed up with competing traffic, what we call the thought cloud, it completely distorts reality. Your analytical processing just overrides the pure sensory data. So you stop observing the real world and you start observing the messy traffic jam of your own internal thoughts.
So the real key here is understanding the massive difference between just seeing and truly observing. Seeing is passive. It's sensory input that's dictated and totally clouded by your inner voice. Observing, though, that's active. It's actively gathering sensory data and processing the world purely, almost like a child does. Think about it. Before a kid learns language, they don't have that constant inner monologue running. They just absorb pure sensory data. They observe incredibly intensely, which is exactly why their brains develop so ridiculously fast in those early years. Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, Mastering Your Senses, Practical Frameworks for Pure Awareness.
So how do we actually shut down that thought cloud and get back to that childlike, super powerful state of observation? Let's use an exercise called the room case. Imagine you're looking at a super chaotic room. Someone's spilling coffee, a guy is yelling on his phone, another person is trying to read. Because your eyes hog about 90% of your brain's data collection, you miss all the little subtleties. But if you just close your eyes and listen to that exact same scene, suddenly you hear the birds chirping outside the window. By intentionally muting one dominant sense, you instantly supercharge the processing power of the others.
Marilyn Vos Savant, a woman who literally has one of the highest recorded IQs in the world, put this beautifully. She said, "To acquire knowledge, one must study, but to acquire wisdom, one must observe." It's so true. We have to actively practice acquiring this wisdom. So let me give you the exact steps to do it. Okay, here is a fantastic, totally practical framework. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 Senseful Meditation, and you can literally do this anywhere. Seriously, just stop and visually observe 5 things around you right now. Then, physically reach out and touch 4 things. Listen really closely for 3 distinct sounds. Try to identify 2 different fragrances or smells, and finally focus on 1 taste. Doing this forcefully yanks your brain right out of that thought cloud and anchors it deeply into the physical, present world. It's a total game changer for multiplying your ability to capture details. And hey, on those days when your inner voice is just screaming with overthinking and anxiety, use the 4-4-4-4 box breathing technique. It's simple. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and hold empty for 4. Doing just 3 rounds of this floods your brain and body with oxygen, absolutely shatters that thought cloud, and pulls your mind right back to the present moment. So, why does all of this actually matter? Well, it's about the power of presence. When you master your observation and finally clear out that thought cloud, you aren't just getting better at solving riddles. You are literally curing modern mental ailments. It stops the endless overthinking. It completely removes self-doubt. It destroys creative blocks because, finally, your brain has fresh, raw data to work with. It even reduces social anxiety, because instead of stressing about your own insecurities, you're actually paying attention to the real person standing right in front of you. Honestly, it can even cure loneliness, because it teaches you how to genuinely connect with the world again. The great philosopher J. Krishnamurti once said, "Observe the observer." You literally have to watch your own mind as it watches the world. But let me ask you something right now. Have you actually been observing this explainer, or were you just passively seeing it? For instance, did you happen to notice if my watch changed 3 times? Or wait, Did you even notice that the background wall behind me right now is completely different from the one at the very start? Gotcha, didn't I? Keep practicing your observation skills, and you will start noticing the world like never before. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll catch you next time.